Rob. What up, man?
What's up, dog?
You good?
I'm great.
Good to see you, man. You got a second?
Yeah, man, what's up? What's this jersey?
It's Bombay from the Mighty Ducks. You too young for that.
Mighty Ducks? Can I fix this on camera?
Of course.
Our relationship anyway?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I see, because it goes. How about
You good?
that? It's probably better.
What's your book?
Oh,
What's up, man? You doing all right?
chilling, man. Trying to stay warm out here. I lost it all from the Bay Area, man.
Is it usually colder up there than
Yeah. It's like this, like basically all the time, or like more of the time. Like we don't have like 100-degree days or anything like that. That's like super rare. So, but yeah, I'm like,
You getting soft out here.
I'm serious though.
No, the gloves is crazy. Don't bring the gloves out. Don't bring the gloves out. You cannot bring the gloves out. You can't bring the gloves out. You can't walk around the LA streets with
I
gloves
do.
on. That's when you go fully soft right
I
there.
do. I have to.
Question for you, man.
Yeah.
You're a pops now.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
You're a pops now, but you got your own craft and you got your own passion. How's balance working so far?
There's two answers for that. So one is probably this is like probably the happiest time in my life. I think the obvious reason is because I have a beautiful baby boy, but part of leading up to that was like, let's call it a 10-year recent journey, but it's basically a life journey of like, what do I do for a career? You know, can I line up what I like to do with what makes me money, like all that type of stuff. So, can I swear here too, or is this, do you care? So that type of, and like, I think now for me in terms of like balancing creativity is like, I'm not doing creativity for someone else on their project. Cause like, you gotta remember, like, my primary position in the industry is doing sound, primarily post-production. So I'm not really like developing story or like producing or directing or writing or doing anything like that. So I think a lot of like, it's probably why everyone comes to a film school to write and direct, because it's like, maybe it's like such a sense of like, this is like my input, my creativity, like my thing, so to speak. But like, I kind of fell out of that love a long time ago, just because, well, especially when I was here, I was like, I don't feel I have enough conflict in my life to be a writer. Mm-hmm. So I was like, it feels irresponsible for me to like continue trying to do this. And then I was like, I can't manage emotions the way a director should. Like, I can't like express that. So I was like, no, I'm not, this doesn't really work for me. And then, you know, just being such a technical person was like, well, man, there's a whole other side of that. So a lot of times for me, especially now, I'm like, my creativity is like doing tummy time with my son, or like learning how to do like a front side flip, or, you know, trying to be brave to do a 6 set, or like looking at these ledges right in front of me being like, I could probably backside crick this and I'd be super sick. Like, so I make beats, whatever, you know, I cook. Like, that's very creative for me, you know what I mean? So like a lot of it for me has just been like balancing it in other ways. And in a way, I've been doing that for a long time, because film work for me, I think I've treated more as economy, as money, as business. Like, this is a job that I have. So I think, I'm not sure that everyone shares that. I'm sure a lot of people do share that, but if that answers it for you, it's more like it's...
I asked because of the fact that, like, I think, yes, I'm in film school, right? But at the end of the day, I care, and I really do want to be a father. And so I think in that capacity, I would like some like kind of console advice from a dude who's actually living that life of how you balance your creativity, your passion, your job, your source of providing, all of that
Yeah.
but at the same time be an active and present dad, you know?
Well, I fear I won't have the best thing to say to you. Because part of what my decision was, it's chasing the word stability, basically. So the film industry is often not that. And, you know, part of my job here, you know, I still look at like what I do here as part of the industry. USC makes like 1,500 movies a year, and I'm the post-production manager. So any time sound or post-production is touched with the movie, I'm involved. I'm greenlighting thesis projects, so I'm involved in scripts and plans for filming and stuff like that. And so like, I think what I really wish someone would have told me is like, supervision is a position.
Say that again?
Supervision is a position.
Word.
So like helping people manage or manifest or do all those things like that's because people think of like producing also, and it's like, yeah, that's part of it, and there's nothing bad about that, but like being a post sound supervisor is not like, I'm not touching every sound that comes through. Like I'm saying, here's what the vision for everything is, and now me and you and him and her are all going to get together and do this, and then I'm going to critique it and say, no, we got to keep chipping away at this. But like, can you see how massive of a scale I'm doing that now at a place like this and the job that I have? So it's extremely fulfilling for me. It's hard to explain that to everybody because they'll be like, well, why don't you want to just work on movies or do something? And that's part of why I'm like, oh, you might not like this, but like being a working director, you're going to be gone 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
So it's almost mathematically impossible to balance that. And I have friends who are directors who have kids, and it's extremely difficult on them. So they have to figure out how to have off seasons or how to, like, you know, draw boundaries with. But I mean, imagine trying to, you know, on your first studio feature, if you're trying to draw boundaries and say like, nah, I can only work 7 hours a day. They're gonna be like, what are you talking about?
Like, yeah, you ain't the guy for the job.
Exactly. So you know, so that's what part of being responsible as a dad and as a human and taking care of yourself is being like, how much energy can I give to the craft and to the industry, and how much can I hold back for other stuff?
Real.
This could be like for your relationships. We've talked about
though.
this before, but it's like you have to make that decision early, and you have to decide on that, and then you have to be firm in that, you know, and you have to know that you're either going to be up on the stage accepting an award alone or being like, thank you to my family for sticking it out with me because I'm gone a lot, or you have to figure out how to do another part of the industry that you can have a better balance.
But I think you said something heavy within that statement is like pretty much the gist of what I took away from it is that balance is boundaries. You know?
Oh, totally.
You gotta, if you want to balance a career, you have to set boundaries based off of where your heart and your perspective lies.
Yeah.
Could you kind of go in more detail about that?
Yeah. Well, because I think that like we often think of boundaries as like, you know, you have a roommate and you set a boundary by saying, if you cook something and make a mess, then could you clean? And that there's like physical boundaries like that, or simple boundaries that we think, but like the film industry tests your boundaries because like especially if you, did you come from film before? No. Like, is this one more recent thing that you've been? So like what, can you tell me one other job you've had in your life?
College football, as far as like occupation.
Okay.
Or like.
Yeah, either. But even football, you've never had a 14-hour football day, have you?
Nah, you'd be dead somewhere on the field.
Yeah. So most things that you do, we'll call athlete a professional thing, which is absolutely true. You spent a lot of time doing that, I'm sure, but you didn't spend 12 hours a day and then turn around 10 hours and then go back and do that for, you know, a month or 2 months straight or something like that. So it tests your like mental boundaries or your like physical, like meaning like how much sleep can I get to operate or not boundaries, like your sort of like general mechanical boundaries. I know a human maybe isn't mechanical, but if that makes sense, it's like how far you can be pushed and pulled. Those are the boundaries that it's testing. And if you know at all times that someone can fire you and hire someone else who will accept those boundaries, it's a lot of pressure that's put on your shoulders that you just got to do it. So I think that that's why there's kind of like unhappiness and unrest, and or a small percentage of people that do this. So like when people say, I'm trying to get in the film industry because I want to make a quick buck, basically, I go, forget it. It's not a place that you could do this. Just completely forget about it. That is not ever going to happen. This is something that you dedicate your life to because you cannot accept doing something else, if that makes sense. Because who would pick this? Who would pick being like, oh yeah, I'm going to work 5 on 2 off, 12-hour days. Sometimes overtime we go to 14. All right, there's literal unions set in place because that means people were like breaking people so bad that then there had to get a whole nother group of people that got involved that said,
just to supervise.
Hey, you need to chill out on how far you push human beings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to lay judgment on that sentence. I'm just saying like that's what happened. That's why the union exists.
And I think that's a great comparison to like why we need to, as creatives, and just somebody like for me, for example, in film school, that there were unions set to make sure that people were getting taken care of.
Correct.
I need to be the union of myself.
Your own self. How about that?
Yeah. So I hear that completely. You talked about stability within the art space, and most artists, there's that overarching thing that artists are starving, and to be true in your art, you gotta be hungry to a certain degree, and
yes,
metaphorically and literally,
physically.
So where and why should artists sometimes maybe take a step back to be more stable, so that they can be true artists at the end of the day?
I mean, I can say a couple of things, but the one thing is that like I feel like a lot of what I'm doing, let's just say just music and skateboarding specifically, if you can call skateboarding creative, but it's something 100%. That you're practicing over and over and stuff like that, is that like if I'm personally in a pressure cooker, it doesn't mean I can't excel and do great things, but I'm probably going to be feeling bad the whole time I'm doing it. Whereas like I'm usually mostly excited to go, oh, I have some time, I'm going to make some music, or I have some time, I'm going to go out and skateboard, or Sergio hits me up and goes, yo, let's play a game of skate or something, let's take a break. And it's like a place like this, like we're asked to take breaks. Like that's part of our, like what we sign a piece of paper to say you actually have to take a break at your job. You know what I mean? Whereas even on a film set, you can have working lunches or just a half an hour break and you can get back to it. The 6-hour rule is because probably people went 10 hours without feeding somebody and they had to invent that rule. So
found somebody passed out.
Exactly. So I think, if you look at it from the perspective of like, because one thing that I didn't do well when I was here until I decided that I wanted to pursue sound solely while I was here, is that my whole life was buzzed. Everything was out of focus. So I couldn't see the story. I couldn't naturally see what the character should be doing. And then I started boom operating, and I'd be like, wouldn't he like walk through the door first to say that, or whatever it is? And they'd be like, oh, totally. But I was not operating from a place of desperation and tiredness, and you know what I mean? Like I was just like
a step away from it, which allowed you to.
And I call it zooming out, basically, or looking at it from a different point of view. Sometimes when you're stuck in the middle of it, you're so overly passive, not passive. What's the word I'm looking for? Passionate about it, that you can't connect dots. It's bizarre. I've seen it happen over and over. You maybe have seen this in football. You're doing a drill wrong or something or whatever. Or you might feel it now, trying to write something or do.
My best days were days away from the game. After those first few days that we were coming back from a break, or we had a long pause in between, and come back and hit the joint hard. So that makes perfect sense.
Yep. So, and again, it's not to say that like you can't do that, or if you can't do that, I should say that it's impossible or something. But like I would just say that that's something that is not like really talked about a lot. It's like, keep a job, grind. I mean, how many times have you heard someone say grind or hustle or some version of that?
You know what got me thinking as soon as you said that? God, these mics fire though, so it might not even heard that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe they're. You're gonna review the footage and be like, what are you guys looking at?
But off of that same tip, people always ask, and they put that pressure on you. As soon as you might have just finished your big project, and they ask you,
what's next?
You know? And it's like, you always got to be moving rather than saying, I just finished.
And
you go.
I'll even one up that and say, you know, most of my life in the independent, you know, some people call it freelance or whatever, but you could have a small company. You could even be working on big projects, but without representation or working for a studio or something, you can't even wait till you're done. You have to, like, a month or 2 weeks before you're even about to finish something, you have to start thinking about what the next thing is. So imagine that level of, like, there's never a resting place.
Yeah.
Imagine practicing football 7 days a week and never resting or having an ice bath or anything. And you're just like, you could not function 100%. It's not possible.
No doubt, no doubt.
So, like, that just, you know, self-care and things like that just never come into the equation. They don't get talked about at a film school. They don't get talked about with art, because also a lot of times it's like the pained person feels the most conflict and can maybe tell the best story. That's probably why the pandemic, we had a lot of great stories coming out of here, because it was like everybody's life had so much of a conflict. It was the same conflict, so there were similar stories, but it was like, that's not coincidental. There had to be something behind that. But, or how many times you hear somebody, like, you know, whatever that 28 club or 29 club, or, you know, people that die at a 27 club. It's like they're all like tortured, pained souls, and in that like little period of time, they make the brightest. Not for them, it was probably horrible, awful experience, but like we consume it and go, what beautiful art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, I feel that. And I've always felt like I want to be in this industry, but adjacent to the point where I can not stress past the point of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Because as artists, we're not doing a physical act. So it's like, oh, you can push yourself, not knowing that energy is getting exhausted inside you, mentally, you know? And on an energy level and in a mental level. So I feel that. So if you were to give me advice on going forward in my career, I graduate in the spring, and going out into the real world in this craft, what would you say about balance that I should be mindful of as I kind of start my career?
Okay. It's a hotbed, huh?
Hey, looking for you.
I know, they're like, don't answer this question. I'm gonna give another piece of advice before I answer that, but I think it will help. Is that I would find the most niche thing that you're the most best at, first of all.
As far as like craft or discipline?
Yep.
Okay.
What stories you tell, how you tell them, everything. Like, think about how many beats Pharrell made before he made Grindin' or something like that. Like that moment never gets talked about. Like how many things that you've done before someone has noticed you. Yeah. And all of that was just to find out, well, here's what's a layup for me. This is what I can do over and over again. So like you know, if we want to stick with basketball, like I wasn't great at ball handling and, you know, dribbling, shooting threes. So when I kind of got sized out, I couldn't really play the 4 anymore. And so I kind of maybe could move to a 3 or something like that. But it was like, oh, well then, you know, basketball maybe isn't like the natural thing for me. Like I understood the game. I was good at it. I could box people out. I could play defense and stuff like that. But I was like, maybe I should step away from that and figure out what was going on. So I've had so many times where I've mourned things in my life that I thought I was going to do professionally. Like so many things. That became a skill of mine to go, oh, I've hit that moment. I know this is over. Like, I should not be pursuing this anymore. So find the thing that you can do the best, the easiest, the most over and over again, and the most niche, because generic does not win anything.
Yeah, that's valid.
You got to do the thing that, and then you want to get to the point where people are calling you to do that niche thing.
Specific thing.
If you could do that, then that's the thing that you want in life. And then after that, I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to have to work hard for 5 years. And you're going to have to not talk to people. You're going to have to eat ramen noodles. It's going to suck. Like, there's no way out of that. Like, if you want in, you got to fight for that. And let's hope it's 2 years, or let's hope it's a year, or whatever it is. But there's always going to be a grind period for somebody that you just got to push past and see if you can mentally push past, see if you can financially push past, like all the things like that, to get to a point where, you know what I'm saying, that you're like, all right, like now I'm being recognized for that niche thing that I want to do. And only then maybe could you achieve that balance. Because I would never ever tell somebody that you should just not work hard or work those 14 hours. That's not what I mean by anything that I've said right now. Or you find something that's adjacent to directing, you know, studio feature films or something like that, and you've expressed interest in teaching or doing something else or whatever, and being brave and not feeling like you're doing something wrong or you're wasting your life or that's wrong, or like, you know,
still adjacent to the craft. It's still adding to that.
But only if that's what you want. Like, you shouldn't just do that. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard some people say, work in the industry no matter what, like work up from the mailroom up, but I've never seen that. Mm-hmm. Like in my generation, I've never seen that. I've never seen someone go from focus pulling to DP. Like, you just keep getting called to pull focus because you're nice at it. So why would someone say like, yeah, you should DP? That just doesn't make sense. But that's a very old school thing where that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I've heard another philosophy that's like, just get any job to like sustain, and then, you know, write or do whatever you can on nights and weekends. Yeah. What's up, man?
Good. Sure.
Bobbing, bro. Let me hit you up in a little bit. Yeah.
I thought it was something hard, bro.
No, it's all good, man. How you been?
I'll be back on you, bro.
He was my student.
In what class?
508.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he hella cool.
He played football too, right?
Georgetown.
Yeah.
Yep. He from Orlando. UCF is in Orlando, so we got like a bunch of mutuals.
Nice. That's cool.
But no, I feel you, man. I feel you. And I think that what you just said takes away from a lot of like that. Cause I as an artist, and especially in school, man, I spend so much time in like this circle of confusion sometimes.
Yes.
If
that's real.
If I was just doubling down on that one specific craft, I mean, that takes away some of the stress right there. And now you can just fine tune that one specific thing to a point where like you can say when you want to do it, you can say when you don't.
Because
to a certain degree.
And the truth is like, you got to get so nice at something that you can get recognized for that. Because there's a lot of people who are talented. So the only way to stand out is to be extremely nice at one thing. Yeah. It's a stupid little thing that I've made up and said over time, but it's basically like, if you were trying to climb a ladder and you were holding 6 backpacks in your hand, would that be harder or easier than climbing the ladder with 1 backpack in your hand? So just climb it with 1 backpack. You can always come back down. After you've made it up there and you've met some people up there, then you can just say, I'm gonna go grab some more of my stuff. I'll see you guys in a minute. Like, that's always easier.
And you know what's, oh dang, you just, my head up just now. We can curse, right?
I don't care. I curse all the time. It's your thing, yeah.
But I can imagine that once you get up the ladder, it's easier to drop that bag off.
Yes.
And then go down rather than coming down with that same bag.
You don't have to. You've already got it. You already brought it up to where you need to.
And I could see just so many of my classmates who like get, you say you want to be a cinematographer. Say you want to be a cinematographer. You're doing all the cinematography work, but then you switched and pivot to a edit job or a sound job or whatever. When this one thing you haven't even mastered yet.
And we may never master anything in our lifetime, but the closer you can get to mastery, obviously the better that you are and the more you'll be rewarded for that. That's a pretty simple thing. Would you if you had to spend $100,000 on someone, would you want to pay to somebody who's like all right at something, or who's someone that's like, no, this is what they do? Yeah. Like, that's a pretty easy sentence to say.
And I can see how mastery has, once you become a master of something, there's balance in that.
Yeah, and then you know, what does Scarface say? First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the respect. It's like, you know, like if you have power, leverage, you know, like maybe you know, like I ended up producing a doc and doing some other stuff and working on some stuff that was like, I got into that doc because I knew some people in the Bay Area and I was going to do sound and blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, well, they know me and I can do some stuff and whatever. And it's like, if I wanted to pursue that more, I could. And I have that credit now and that could be possible. That was after years of me just being like really, really good at one thing. You know what I mean? And including like, then I was like, yo, I'm going to get really nice at teaching. And then I made my channel and I did, you see what I'm saying? It's like, then things start to open, but I feel like a lot of times it's like people take it to like the like 1 quarter mark and be like, oh, I took this as far as I can go. Or they get antsy and they're like, I need to try this other thing or whatever. And I'm like, that I've just never, you can't, there's like Ferrari doesn't exist that way.
No doubt.
Do you know what I mean? Like any name that you say out loud that you're like, oh, I respect that, like none of them exist that way. That's the only thing that they did. And that's the only thing that they were competitive about. That's what makes like a multi-sport athlete so phenomenal and why it's so every once in a while that happens, because it's like, how could you be good at baseball and football? How could that be possible? There's only like 3 guys that could ever do that. You know what I mean? And it's like, because that's so special that you could do that, and we can't even recognize how special that is sometimes. But I mean, that's just kind of how I look at it. But conversely, that's the hardest part of all of this, because you might be multi-passionate and that feels right to you. Or someone might have said, try to be good at a lot of things, it'll make you well-rounded. But it's like, that's not really how the film industry works.
Having the discipline to say, no, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do. Even
and that almost goes back to the balance thing, is balancing what you say yes and no to, and not just saying yes to everything because they're your partner or something like that. You got to be like, no, I don't do that. Because otherwise you'll get...
If that's less work, it's the right work.
You've got to do the right work. It's not generic. Nothing about this is generic. Nobody wants to hire somebody who's generic.
I like that. Just to the right work, man. Appreciate you making the time for me.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Same time next week?
Yeah.
Cool.
We can do it.
Appreciate you, man.
Hell yeah.
It's my little Enzo.
I will. You got to meet him.
I will. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
He'll be here.